Welcome, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the NOVA Education webinar. My name is Tom Scanlon, and I'm the Education Coordinator here at NOVA for the Making North America series. I want to welcome everyone to the Dig Deeper into Earth Sciences webinar, coming to you live from WGBH in Boston, where NOVA is produced, along with many other fine shows. And tonight we're going to talk to you about the array of new educational resources available to you, our science teachers of grade levels 6 through 12. And joining me tonight are two very special guests, Duggan-Haas and Rob Ross from the Paleontological Research Institute in upstate New York. They are experts in the field of earth science education. I want to welcome Don and Rob. Why don't you guys quickly, briefly introduce yourselves?
Take it away, Rob.
All right. My name is Rob Ross. I am have been at the Paleontological Research Institution for the past 17 years, doing a wide variety of things associated with earth science education for both the public and K-12 educators. And I've been working with Don for over a decade on helping to bring real and regional and local earth science into the classroom.
I'm Don Duggan-Haas. I'm the Director of Teacher Programs at the Paleontological Research Institution and a former high school earth science teacher, middle school science teacher, wearer of many hats, former professor of science education as well, and have been at PRI for a little over 8 years now.
Great. Well, it's still great to have you guys with us here tonight to discuss your new educator resources and NOVA's new Making North America educator resources and how they can be integrated. And as we're going to see, they're a great fit, and the combination can really enrich earth science curriculum and the learning experience for students. And I'm going to just do a little quick screen share here and show folks what we have for our outline for tonight. So we're just gonna, this is just a quick rundown of the outline for tonight. And so I hope everyone watching has seen Making North America, or at least familiar with NOVA's Making North America series. It's a three-part series that aired on the first 3 Wednesdays of last month. And the response to this has really been phenomenal. Public, it was seen by roughly 4.5 million viewers, is very well received. But more to the point of tonight's webinar, teachers are expressing really strong interest for more. You want related classroom resources that go beyond the shows. And we've finished our first batch of resources, and we have more to go. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So Making North America is hosted by this gentleman here, Kirk Johnson. He is the director of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, and really great host of the series. And just want to pop over here. The first question that's likely on everyone's minds is, where can I watch these shows? And right here, you go to pbs.org, WGBH NOVA, Making North America. And this is our landing page. And just a brief overview. On this page here, this is where you can stream all of the different episodes. 3 episodes. This first one is called Origins, and that takes it from the very beginning of the formation of the continent. The second episode, Life, discusses the rise of complex life on the continent and why North America was so hospitable to the dinosaurs, and of course their extinction, and on up through the Pleistocene. And the final episode, Life, addresses us, humans, and our arrival on this continent about 14,000 years ago, and how we've shaped the continent, shaped the life on this continent, and the climate. And so you can watch all 3 episodes here. You can stream those. And I'm sure teachers are also wondering, can you show these to your class? And of course you can. You can screen them for free. You can show them to your entire school, your community. There's no permission needed. You're free. Just don't charge admission. That's all we ask. And so I also just want to now just point you to a function here up on the right, which is called our up here on the right side. You'll see it's called the showcase.
You stop screen sharing somehow. You're not screen sharing anymore.
Right.
It's just back on you.
Okay, so yeah, so up on the right you'll see the showcase button, and that's where we're going to be loading and putting up the links to the different resources that we're going to be talking about tonight. Okay. So NOVA creates these great shows, and NOVA Education has the mission of extending these shows beyond the broadcast and into the classroom and to create additional resources. And we do this by mostly creating an array of digital resources related to the shows, geared primarily for grades 6 through 12, because you can't just show a 52-minute documentary in your classroom, and you're looking for contextualized content, short-form videos, classroom activities, background essays, and so much more. And we rely on teachers. We have a teacher advisory board to select those videos and to align them to standards. So it's all peer selected and vetted, and I think that's very important to convey. I just want to point out a couple more resources up here on the showcase. Up on the right-hand side, you'll see we looked at the homepage. It's the Making North America homepage. Below that's a PBS LearningMedia, and that's where we have our contextualized videos. So if you click on that link, I'm going to go back to screen share and just kind of show you that. Here. So this is the PBS LearningMedia page. And PBS LearningMedia is a huge website, and there's thousands of videos on here from all different sources. NOVA is just one of the sources. We have about 700 videos. What we're looking at right now is the Making North America collection page. And this is really what teachers are going to be most interested in terms of the NOVA side. And I'm just going to point out, right now we have 4 videos, short-form videos, all from episode 1 that are now available to teachers to use, to download, to stream for your classrooms, along with contextualized additional resources. And I'm just going to point out one video here, which is uncovering the layers of the Grand Canyon. This is really a fantastic short-form video. These are all short-form. And so if you click on here, you'll see the start button for the video.
Our journey starts here.
And this is the beginning of episode 1, where Kirk Johnson begins in the Grand Canyon. We take a look at the different layers of the Grand Canyon. He's surveying those layers and looking at how each layer is a time capsule, and each layer tells a different story of what the planet was like when that layer was deposited. The sandstone layer was formed 300 million years ago, and then the one below that's a limestone layer 340 million years ago. And I'm just going to fast forward over to about 4 minutes in. NOVA is really great with graphic animations. And right here you can see how we do a good job of pulling out the different layers of the Grand Canyon and showing those layers in a very vivid way. That it's a very strong teaching tool. I've had a lot of great feedback from teachers about this particular video and how excited they are to have something that really shows the sedimentary layers over deep time. You can see right here, it almost looks like granola bars. But this is a really effective teaching tool. So some great feedback on this. So then you've got the video, and then as important, you've got the support materials right here on the left. So you just click that. You can see the different array of materials. Basically 3 different categories. We have the activities, the background essays, teaching tips, and then also the standards that they're aligned to. So each one, you just click these buttons and it pulls up the standards. What's cool about the Grand Canyon clip is it has a really fun activity associated with this video for your classroom, where you break your classroom up into little research groups, and each group takes a different layer of the Grand Canyon and explores what the Earth looked like at that time of that layer, doing some research, looking at different research sources, and coming up with, it's almost like an art science project, so it's really fun, but has some solid pedagogical value there too. And just going to now pop over and look at one other NOVA resource, which is the Making North America Interactive Map. And again, we have support materials for how to incorporate this tool into your classroom. This is a really neat application, developed especially for Making North America, first time we've done anything like this. So again, this is all up in the showcase in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. And the interactive map is a really powerful tool. It's basically three different modes. Over on the right here, you can watch the different episodes. But the two modes you're going to be really interested in are Explore and Expedition. I'm quickly just going to take a look at this expedition. We are going to just go right to the menu here, Expedition. And I'm just going to pull out a trek here. I'm going to look at Trek 2. You can take your classrooms, have your students go on treks and explore different iconic geological sites around the continent. And so it starts off with this basic question. Look at, this particular one starts with asking you to look for a national landmark high in the prairies at the heart of North America. And you've got these different options here. And I'm going to take a wild guess that it's asking for Kansas. And here we are in Kansas. And what's really cool about this, you'll see, is you can explore this map. Pause for a little technical. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. Sorry. A little technical snafu here. Hold on a minute. Okay. Here we are. So we're in the map here. And this tool allows you to zoom in really close on these geological sites. Here we are in Kansas at Monument Rocks. And the activity here is to hunt for a fossil in the layers of Monument Rocks. And as you can see with this technology, you can get really, really, really close. And with this particular quiz, we are looking for a fossil embedded in the rocks, and if you search around, you will find that fossil. And what it is, it's right there. It's a T-Rex tooth. It's right here, right there. So that's just a quick overview of the interactive map. Okay. So we are going to pop back over. So those are just a few of the NOVA resources, just a quick overview of those. And another quick functionality I want to show folks on your Google Hangout here is the questions. And so you'll see that on the left, and please send in your questions, and at the end of the presentation we'll get to those and we'll answer some of your questions. So I'm going to now hand it over to Don and Rob and let them tell you about PRI's resources and how you can connect those to the Making North America resources.
Okay. I am going to start screen sharing, and we'll actually start off with one of those. Take off my headphones because I'm going to play it on here. And this is making North America granite versus basalt formation. I'll also note that I put in a link to a set of a blog post that has links. All of the links that we talk about tonight are included in this blog post, and that's in the chat on the Hangout. So you don't need to try and capture these things now. This 2.5-minute video talks about granite, comparing granite and basalt formation. We're going to take a quick look at the video and crank up the volume.
All land on our planet started out like this,
Go to full screen
as lava,
here.
cooling and turning into dark, heavy volcanic rock. It would take a dramatic transformation to turn volcanic islands like this into the first continents. I've got two kinds of rocks here. The first one is this dark, heavy stuff called basalt. This is the kind of rock you find on ocean floors and ocean crusts and on ocean islands like Hawaii. The second kind of rock is lighter in color and it's lighter in weight, called granite. And rocks like this form the stuff of our continents. You can find granite all over the place in North America. From the Appalachians on the East Coast to the sheer rock faces of Yosemite and the towering peaks of the Rockies. Without granite and other light rocks, there might not even be any continents. Because at one time, the only rock on the face of the earth was volcanic rock, like basalt. Trick is, how do you get the granite in the first place if you start out with only basalt? Under the ancient oceans, our whole planet was covered in basalt, broken into large chunks called plates. Deep beneath them, the heat of the earth softens the rocks, moves them like a giant conveyor belt. This pushes and pulls the plates of basalt along the surface, and sometimes even drags them down, triggering a reaction in the red-hot rocks below. The lighter stuff melts, floats upwards, and cools into granite, gradually building up a thick layer of light, buoyant rock. And this is how you turn heavy volcanic rocks into the rocks that make continents, including our own.
Okay, so now, having seen that, we're going to take a trip to in Google Earth and look at where there's some brand new rocks, basalt in Hawaii. And we saw some of that in the video, and what we're going to do is look at where that's coming from. And part of what the video was doing was comparing basalt and granite. Part of what we're doing, and I should take a step or two back and say that making North America has a driving question behind it, something along the lines of why does North America look the way it does? And Rob and I have been working on this project called the Real Earth Inquiry Project for 8 years now that has a very, very similar driving question of why does this place look the way it does, where this place is wherever you happen to be. And we want to help teachers and students learn to read a landscape, and that's really what these resources are all about. So there's two components. I'm going to talk about virtual fieldwork, and Rob's going to talk about the teacher-friendly guides, and right now we're in one of the virtual fieldwork experiences that also works by comparison, not of two different rock types, but of two different places. So right now we're looking out on some basalt at Kilauea, and within these resources we've put in some comparisons to Craters of the Moon National Monument in Idaho, and you can see that the appearance here is pretty similar between these two locations, and we've put in 3 pairs of locations in each of the 2 places, in Kilauea and in Idaho. And you're able to zoom from place to place by just double-clicking on things, and sometimes if things don't click into Street View, you might need to zoom out a little further and zoom back in. And in each of these pairs of places, we've got the corresponding place in the other, at the other location. So when you double-click on the icon, it takes you into Kilauea here, and you can click on that and open up a view in Idaho of Craters of the Moon National Monument. And there's a set of questions in a lesson plan that that takes you through the importance of analogy in geology and interpreting landscapes and understanding why a place looks the way that it does. In Hawaii, it's fairly obvious that this is lava because there's actually lava flowing in parts of Hawaii, and it ends up, you know, after it flows, cooling down and looking like this stuff. In Idaho, where this picture that I just popped up is, there hasn't been lava flowing there for tens of thousands of years, yet it looks very, very much like the landscape in Hawaii. And there are a number of ways you can compare the 2 places. You can pull up the current weather in both places. I would much rather be at Kilauea right now than in Arco, Idaho. And there's a number of other things that you can do within this virtual fieldwork experience. We're looking in Google Earth. I'm going to fly off now to Idaho and just say a quick word or 2 about what's going on over there. And also note that at the tops of each of these things is you pause and you look down on the site, and you can see when we're looking down on Craters of the Moon what looks like an ink stain on the environment. And if I had clicked that part in Hawaii, and I think maybe I did, you also see what looks like an ink stain on the environment. Well, that's the basalt. And so looking for those similarities tells you things about, or helps you infer things about where you're looking and why it came to look the way that it did. So I'm just going to zoom in on one of these for the sake of time. And here we are now looking out in Idaho at Craters of the Moon, and the corresponding place in Hawaii should pop up if it cooperates. Why is it not cooperating? Zoom out a little bit, that might help. And you can also, I'll just, oops, do that. You can also explore around. We're not just limited to looking in the particular place that we're looking, but I do want my place mark to show up. Let me see if stepping out helps. And for some reason it's not working, but it worked in rehearsal. So we'll just move on from that and try a different one here. And here we are again in Idaho. For some reason something's not working, but we'll assume that it will work later on. I'll also note that there's some nice immersive panoramas here. So you can go into a lava tunnel, and in the interactive map on Making North America, you can go into a lava tunnel in Hawaii. So if we click here, that'll take us into a view of the lava tunnel in Idaho. And again, it's a 3D panorama. You can look around, see yourself inside the tube, and you can go off to the interactive map that Tom was showing us earlier and explore there. I'll say just a tiny bit about Google Earth. It's free software. There's, again, links in that, from that link I put is a series of links that includes a link to Google Earth. I'll also note that Google Earth Pro is now free for everybody. And I'll note that if you're using Chromebooks, you need to do a workaround, and if you're using Chromebooks and want to figure out how to do that, send me an email and I'll help you figure out how to do that. It unfortunately does not work as well on Chromebooks as we might like. And I'm going to switch over to Rob now. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. We're trying. Stop screen sharing.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
If it's me.
Yes, okay. So I'm going to tell you about some content resources that we think will be helpful in using the resources of Making North America, or going to one of the virtual fieldwork experiences that Don just mentioned, or simply understanding backyard. So for example, you will recognize this as the video that Don played. It's a page on the PBS LearningMedia website that has the resource, the teaching resource on granite and basalt formation. And in this particular activity, the focus is on, of course, granite and basalt and on volcanoes. So say, for example, that you wanted to explore this with your class, but maybe your class hasn't been to Hawaii. Maybe you haven't been to Hawaii yourself. You want a little bit of extra background knowledge. For many years, we've been gathering together content and trying to make it user-friendly through this series of 7 what we call teacher-friendly guides to the earth science of the United States. We are just in the process of finishing these up. The Southwest should be done in a few weeks. The others are now available as PDFs or online, or in some cases as physical books. And the idea behind these is, if you're watching Making North America and you see a particular locality that's interesting and you want to talk more about it in class, but you don't have a deep background knowledge of that place, you can learn more about it in one of these guides. Or likewise, you can choose any place, of course, in the United States, or maybe some place local to you. So for example, Hawaii, as you know, is in the western United States. It's one of 7 sub-regions within that's covered by the Western Guide. And if you were to look at the table of contents of any given teacher-friendly guide, you'd find that it's organized like this, with geologic history up at the top, and going back to this driving question, why the way it does. That is the story of Making North America. Why does your backyard look the way it does? It is because one way or another of the geologic history over the course of anywhere from years to billions of years. And so we have placed the geologic history at the front, and then each chapter covers rocks, fossils, topography, and so on for each of the regions. And so in this particular case, Hawaii has its own section in the geologic history of the western U.S. There's a section on rocks of Hawaii, and if you go to these are a couple pages from a PDF of the books, which you're available to get. You can get for free on the website teacherfriendlyguide.org, and you can get nice illustrations here, and you'll see that there are glossary items along the margins, in case you want to familiarize yourself with things that you haven't come across before. And when you go to the PBS LearningMedia activity for this particular video clip, you'll see that among the learning outcomes are for students to know something about the characteristics of granite and basalt, formation of granite and basalt. There may be something in the textbook, but also in these guides there's an introductory section to each of the chapters that can be a review for you or for your students that introduces some of the basic background before getting to the regional earth science itself. So for example, here's the rock cycle, igneous rocks of the West, basalt and granite, of course, are two of the entries, and then there's some discussion about different kinds of different types of rocks and how they're formed and so on. Same thing, you go into the rocks chapter, there's a section on rocks of Hawaii. Basalt can look in many different ways, weather in many different ways, and that's reflected in this particular part of this chapter. So imagine that you wanted to look at, you could look at anything from sandstones to particular topographic features, fossils, whatever it is that you're covering in your class or that you might be seeing in Making North America, you can find that in one of these guides. So identify locations in which granite and basalt are found. So let's say that you're not in Hawaii, which you probably aren't. Let's say that you're in the Northwest Central. You might look, you might find basalt someplace in the Rockies, or its felsic equivalent rhyolite. Don just talked about the Columbia Plateau and the Craters of the Moon National Monument, which is in that area. And so this is, Craters of the Moon is covered in a number of places within this guide. This is just an example because Don happened to mention it. How about granite? You can look in the rocks chapter for the Northwest Central and find where granite occurs in that region. In this particular case, it happens to be the stuff of which Mount Rushmore is made. At the end of these teacher-friendly guides is a chapter on real and virtual fieldwork. And the idea here, again, is that the biggest influence that Making North America could make, in a way, is not only to get you excited about some of these spectacular and exotic features of North America, but to get you thinking about, or to get your students thinking about, places that they might see within a day's drive of their own community. And so this chapter covers some of the ways of going into the field and how to then bring the field back to the classroom. There's also an appendix on the Next Generation Science Standards, which basically links using geological history and regional and local earth science in the context of the Next Generation Science Standards. And with that, I will hand it back to Don. So I will stop screen sharing.
Don, let me just jump in and encourage viewers to submit their questions while you guys are presenting. Upper part of your screen, you'll see red dots. Click that. You'll then see the QA icon. Click that and submit your questions. And you can also see the showcase button again, and that's, we uploaded the PRI blog, which has links to everything Don and Rob have been talking about. So that's also on the right-hand side. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Don, we don't hear you at the moment.
That's because I was on mute. Sorry about that. So I assume you hear me now? And do you also see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to say a little bit more about what virtual fieldwork experiences are. There are a bunch of different things at once. The most obvious thing that they are is multimedia representations of field sites that we hope promote meaningful inquiry-based exploration. They're question-driven, and again, very similar in the driving question to what Making North America is all about, is why does this place look the way it does? But it's more place-based. It's stepping in from the continent and getting down to your backyard or the environment local to your school, we hope. So we've got virtual fieldwork experiences, or what we call VFEs, from all over the country, but we hope that these things serve as scaffolding for fieldwork, for catalysts for fieldwork. They are proxies for fieldwork, but we want you to get out into the field with your students, and we hope some of the things we put together can help you do that. There was a professional development program that went along with this, the grant from the National Science Foundation that funded the Real Earth Inquiry Project, that's now concluded, but we're still offering professional development for schools that seek us out, or other organizations that seek us out. And that professional development leaves a trail, meaning that you can show a product of what you have done, and it does the same thing for your students. So there's evidence of the field work that you've done, and that evidence allows you to share the field work you've done with other individuals and groups, and allows you to continue analyzing after you're done in the field, and set it up for your students to do the same, to dig in deeper into the environment the following year. Within the teacher-friendly guides, there's a chapter, as Rob mentioned, on real and virtual fieldwork. One of the, I think, most important things that we've done is come up with question sets for earth and environmental science that can be asked about anywhere. And these are downloadable as PDFs and maybe as Microsoft Word documents as well, and some of the other resources that are in that list of links in that blog post. But all of these questions can be asked about anywhere. There's a set that's geoscience based, and a set that's more environmental science based, and then we've put them into a graphic organizer that you can plug in stuff for your own site. So this is Dinosaur Ridge in Colorado, outside of Denver, and this is just a small excerpt of that, which is on the virtual. There's much more detail on the virtual fieldwork website, virtualfieldwork.org. But you can see there's a series of questions. These are the same questions in that list we were just looking at. There's some global questions in the center there, and then these things that we call arrow level questions that are kind of like units, but not exactly like units that you might have in an earth science class or an environmental science class, if we zoom in on that one. Again, this is set up so that you can plug in your own stuff, and you can have students working in groups on an arrow question for the review at the end of the year. You can do this over the course of the year, because every unit in an earth or environmental science class pretty much plays out in some meaningful way outside your classroom door. It also plays out in some meaningful way in the making of North America. So there is a database of virtual fieldwork experiences at virtualfieldwork.org, and other resources for doing other things. I want to say a quick, well, I probably ought to stop since it's 7:40, and go to questions, I think. And again, I'll note that this very quick webinar is only going to have an influence on your teaching if you dig in to some of the resources that we've shared. So I invite you to do that, and I invite you to ask us questions, and I am going to stop screen sharing and send it back to Tom for moderating the questions. Have I stopped screen sharing?
Yep.
Yes, I did. Okay.
Good. Okay, we have a question from a viewer, Spencer. He says, I love the graphics and explanations in the guides. Are there any plans to develop the teacher-friendly guides into free PDF Earth Science textbooks, which could include links to the virtual field expeditions similar to CK12? John, Rob, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'd be happy to take that. We hadn't actually considered creating a textbook per se for students. If they were interested in that, we would be very interested in considering it. We think that the level of, we know that some teachers have actually taken, even though the guides themselves were written with teachers in mind, we know that some teachers have taken portions of text and illustrations out and used them directly in the classroom, and of course everyone's welcome to do that. The teacher guides right now are online and available as free PDFs. They, because the virtual fieldwork experiences are sort of evolving and the number are continuing to grow, they have not been integrated yet into the website, but it's our plan to eventually do that. And I imagine we'll do the same thing with the clips from Making North America.
Yeah, and I'll note that Bill Keene, who I think is on the call and is a geology professor at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, has used the teacher-friendly guide to the earth science of the Midwest as a textbook in his class on earth science for elementary school teachers. So it is being used as a textbook in at least one place, but it is a college. It's being used in a college class in that case.
Okay, great. Let's have another question. We have a question from. You have a question from. Oh, no, that's. Encourage folks out there viewing to submit some more questions because we have none on the queue right now, but
I can show more stuff if we want to.
Oh, okay, we do. Okay, we have a question from someone in Florida who's asking, how can I make earth science local and fun for my students who live in extremely flat Florida? I don't know if all of Florida is extremely flat, but apparently where this person lives.
Well, I'm going to start and then hand it off to Rob and just say a general set of ideas, I guess. And that's the driving question again is, why does this place look the way it does? Which we think is an interesting question no matter where you live. No matter where you live, there's a very interesting, very long story of the geology behind how a place came to be the way that it is. And Florida has a lot of actually pretty interesting things. It's got karst topography and sinkholes swallowing up houses every now and then and things like that. And it's got it's interesting the interplay between the biosphere and the lithosphere, between life and rock, that form the Everglades, for example. And I think there are a lot of ways that even a place that looks pretty boring can be pretty interesting if you dig into it metaphorically or literally. And I'll let Rob follow up on that.
Sure. Yeah, this is a classic question. It also comes up in places in the Midwest and some other parts of the country where the bedrock may not be obvious and where there aren't necessarily big topographic features. However, almost every place has places where the bedrock is exposed in either streams or pits for mining or sometimes road cuts. And Florida happens to be a place that's essentially made out of living things. One of the and one can tell the geologic story of Florida in part through the fossils that occur there. So although Florida is not exceptionally rich in topographic features, it is world-renowned for its fossil record. And a lot of what we think we know about the history of climate in the Western Atlantic and Caribbean area comes from the spectacularly preserved fossil faunas of Florida. And although they may not be right near the schoolyard, it's almost certainly the case that within a few hours' drive, it will be possible to find a place where you can collect enough fossils to bring back to the classroom and talk about the organisms that are there and compare them to modern organisms. You might say, well, isn't that biology? And of course, the fact is that Earth system science includes an important biotic component because such a large part of Florida is carbonate, that is rock that's made out of um, calcium carbonate, which is the stuff of shells and corals and so on, the relationship between biology and geology are really intermixed. So that's just one example, and I'd be happy to give others. But in many cases, you can tell something about an area often has a very geologic history if you can find a place to where somebody has dug down a bit.
I think it's a great point. And to follow up on that, to also lead into another question for you guys. You know, I think the big challenge is how to get kids excited about geology, and I think that's one of the very successful elements of the Making North America series, is that because we have such an energetic, relatable host who is himself very enthused about geology, and we look at iconic locations around the continent that people know and people love, and we tell the story of that over deep time up to the present. They're including Manhattan. I think we use that as an example to talk about bedrock and how the schist and the depth of the schist really drives the Manhattan skyline. So the question I have for you guys is, and it kind of follows up on what the person was asking in Florida, is if you had to pick one of your resources and one of your locations that you think is the most successful in for teachers in getting their students excited, what resource would you point teachers towards using?
Don, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. And I'll start with screen sharing. And am I? No. Let's try that again. Start with screen sharing, and we'll go to virtualfieldwork.org and the VFE database. And my favorite VFE, virtual fieldwork experience, is at Dinosaur Ridge in Colorado, just outside of Denver, which we mentioned, and I'm going to just click on the link from within the map there to take us to Dinosaur Ridge, which is just an absolutely amazing place. It has, I believe, at least 4 different sets of dinosaur fossils of wildly different ages, spanning more than 100 million years, which, to give you an idea of how long that is, humans as we are have been around for something like 200,000 years. And so there's dinosaurs of over 100 million years of different ages, fossils, at this one site that you can walk in an hour. And the most spectacular piece of it is what you see here. And for all of the VFEs that we put together, there's an iconic image. And while the iconic image for Dinosaur Ridge is this incredible set of dinosaur footprints, where there's 2 different species of dinosaurs, hundreds of footprints, adults and juveniles of both species. And like I said, kind of around the corner, there's a very different set of dinosaur footprints called Brontosaurus bumps, which are a side view of either a Brontosaurus or an Apatosaurus. And when we first put this together a couple of years ago, I always had to correct the story and say they should be called Apatosaurus bumps, because Brontosauruses and Apatosauruses were decided to be the same species a long, long time ago. But then, in last year or so, they decided that Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus are actually different species. So we can say that again. And there's just such a rich array of things at this one place, and I think we've done a really cool job of putting some things together within this VFE that I think are a really nice showcase. And I'll show you another really interesting piece of it where, oh, maybe I already did this actually, where we're looking at a geologic map, and a lot of interesting things you can do with geologic maps in the VFEs that take those 2-dimensional representations and help you understand the three-dimensional features they're trying to show. So Dinosaur Ridge is sort of classic what's called layer cake geology, but it's hard to see that on a flat map. But in Google Earth, you can overlay it, and you can now see those layers tilted out of the landscape. And we've set up something so that you can fly around it in a strategic way. And now we're looking into the layers of the layer cake, and it begins to hopefully give you that click of realization of what's going on in this complex flat piece of paper that is showing a three-dimensional world. So we're looking into the layers here, and you can see the layers there, and now we're going to swing around to another view, and now we're looking down on the top of the layers of the layer cake, and that's pretty cool. And it's both a really cool site, and I think we've done a really pretty cool job of representing it in the VFE. So that, I guess, is my answer.
It's great. Thanks, guys. Well, we are running up to our time limit here, so I want to thank Don and Rob from PRI for discussing their amazing educator resources, and I want to thank everyone out there in Cyberland for watching. And please know that this will be on YouTube, and the resources are all archived, so you can access the links to all the resources that we discussed tonight. The Making North America PBS Learning short videos, the streaming of the full episodes, the interactive map, the PRI virtual field, and their teacher guides, everything, the links are all there, so please take time to explore those. Follow up with us with any additional questions you may have. Write to us here at Nova Education at wgbh.org. Any feedback would be great. And we are holding another of these webinars next week, Tuesday, same time, addressing the intersection of earth science and biology with our special guest, National Center for Science Education. You can find a link to join that conversation in the same page, the same Google Hangout page that you joined this one. So, so please consider doing that. And thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful night. Don and Rob, any closing comments?
Well, we'd like to thank you, Tom, and your colleagues for putting this together. We just want to remind everybody to please be in touch if you have questions or thoughts either about our resources or interesting things that you've done with the Making North America videos and films and associated activities. There's a tremendous amount of resources there, and we hope that we know everybody's very busy, but we hope that you'll find some time to dig in.
Yeah, and we'll be able to respond to comments on the Google Hangout page, and you can find us at museumoftheearth.org, and the resources that we talked about today are all in those links that I posted on the blog post, and it's virtualfieldwork.org and teacherfriendlyguide.org for the big overarching websites. And thanks very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.
Mm-hmm.